it comes to other things like whether or not you can now engage your content when the military were firing on the protesters. I mean, that's a different story. Now you've got to deal with firearms and aggressive military presence who were targeting the media directly. Those signs, those warning signs there are like an immediate no-no. In fact, I was even threatened a few times by the military in that situation. And then obviously you're not going to push that envelope far at all because you know either you're going to get beaten or shot. People often look at my work and they say, man, you're crazy or you want to die. And I think I like to go along the lines of it's an informed risk, an informed decision with risk involved. It's not always going to be the case that I'm reckless as it appears on the video later. It's actually because you've become accustomed to working in those environments and you then operate on what you know. When navigating conflict situations that you find yourself in, I think it's almost entirely instinctive. There are going to be situations that are very, very similar that you've navigated beforehand, and these are going to inform your reactions and responses as you're confronted with these new environments. When deciding on how close you're going to get to the violence or the dangerous situation, you're going to be informed by situations in the past and what kind of risk this new environment presents you with. There are going to be some situations where you're like, there's no ways I can shoot this close up. Like, this is actually an immediate threat to myself, my own person. And they always say the story isn't worth, risking violence to yourself or being hurt. But sometimes you definitely think, I need this shot, I need this. So every single time, every single situation, you're going to interrogate for yourself and then decide how close you can get and is it worth the risk. Make sure your batteries are charged, your cards are empty, your camera is ready to shoot. As we know with visuals, if you weren't there, you're not going to be able to capture it. It's not like something that you can ask afterwards, like we see in print media, like we see in sound. Can you give me a sound bite after the fact? No, if you weren't there, you didn't see it, you didn't film it, it never happened. You might as well have just not got out of bed this morning. I always like to make sure that no matter where I am, I have my gear with me and it's prepped, ready to go. Whether that be on holiday, whether I'm going to the shops, very often my gear will be with me. And it's on standby or whatever. I'm ready to go when I need to go. And fortunately enough, I use some pretty good gear. I have a 5D Mark IV, nice lens, it's stabilized. The kind of work I like to do, a lot of running around, it's very action-based. I like to be very close to my subject, so if there's violence happening, I like to be right in that violence. If there's somebody crying or if there's somebody being very, very happy with something, I like to be really, really close. And that means there's no tripod. Tripod's heavy, it's cumbersome, I have to set it up, take it down. There's no time for that. I want to be able to move very quickly. So I need a stabilized lens. I need it to be fairly practical. So the 24-105 that Canon makes, brilliant lens, very, very nice. And of course the camera I use has got nice high quality. Not too big that I can't downscale it or I have to downscale it, but high enough quality that I can turn around high quality video very, very quickly. But a good camera also needs to be a very fast processor. I shoot stills and video and I shoot fast news, so it's always moving quickly. I need to be able to switch between video and stills very, very quickly without having to wait for the camera to catch up to me. So that's imperative. Fast read-write speed, and then just quality, like high sensor, great in low light. I do a lot of gang raids or crime at night or trying to capture the essence of a community under the threat of crime, for example. That happens at night, that doesn't really happen during the day, so I have to be able to shoot at night with a good camera. One thing that people always underestimate is the power of sound. So I use a nice shotgun mic, as well as lapel mics. And when you get that beautiful clarity of sound coming through in your videos. People never realize it, but if you go and see like a cinema film, you never realize how much that sound is actually impacting your experience of what you're seeing. And I think it's very, very important. And I think a lot of people don't give it its dues. I think I discovered the power of sound in one of my earlier documentaries that I shot for EWN. It's like I think a 7-minute piece called Living in Fear, and it's about Manenberg. And people there were so afraid to speak to us on camera that we had to do recordings using our phones, for example. And this woman's testimony of how terrified she is to set foot outside her house, which is one of those, those flats that they have in Cape Town, in Manenberg, because she's afraid of either herself or her child being shot. And I played it underneath the visuals of just driving through Manenberg at night, just recording the kind of environment and just playing this audio underneath.
When they shoot, then we must lay flat in the house 4, 5, 6 times a day, and it's go on like.
And it was so powerful that because you're not stimulated by too many visuals, the audio is then intensified. And there's always going to be a place for that in your video. We always say, when you create a video, you need to give the audience breathing space. And I like to give them that breathing space, but it can't be quiet. There has to be something. So if you're shooting like a nature documentary, for example, you often hear those crickets in the background, or maybe like the call of a hyena. It's the same thing when you're shooting people. You know, you're going to have the sound and the testimony of something, or shouting in the background, maybe a couple of gunshots. And because you don't have the visual to match, it can either be like very disorientating for the viewer, or it can really pull somebody into that moment when it comes to sound. And I think it's something that people often neglect when it comes to creating videos. They rely very heavily on the visual to tell the story. But I mean, if you've ever watched anything with the mute button on, you know you're not even getting half the experience. You're getting a third of the experience. And I think that idea of soundscaping, when it was termed soundscaping, I think that was like a great way of identifying what that medium is. And I think it's imperative that you have excellent sound in your video, more than people give it credit for, absolutely. It's not so much that somebody poses and then slips. It's like when I hold the camera in front of you, society has taught me what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to present myself. You know? And I think what journalism does well is that it escapes that. So you have somebody throwing a rock, for example, at police. He's unaware, or hopefully unaware, of the camera. And that's what you try and do as a journalist very often, is you get so comfortable, you make people so comfortable with you in that environment that they don't recognize that there's a camera photographing them. That entire picture that guy has when he's throwing that rock at police is now a completely honest moment. So if I had to present you with a camera, you're going to sit there and you're going to pose and you're going to present yourself. And then eventually you're going to kind of like, you feel a bit awkward, like I don't hear a click, you know? And you kind of like get a little bit like, what's really going on, you know? And then you slip into like, oh, there's something on that desk over there or whatever, you know? And then all of a sudden, you haven't really thought about it, but now you're just being yourself. And then there's a certain honesty that comes through people's faces, through the expression, through their eyes that I like to capture. And that's the shot that I always try and go for. And then that'll obviously translate, like I've just explained, that'll translate into my work. It sounds terrible, but you wait until somebody's crying. Then they're fully comfortable with you being the spectator, being, you know, they don't even notice the camera's there. They are honestly just crying in front of you and bearing their soul. You know, that's the powerful shot. That's the very important shot. And that's something that I really like to get is the raw humanity, in fact. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a ballet dancer or if it's, you know, a crying mother or something. But I think that's what people like to connect with, need to connect with. And I think we have done well as a society to escape that raw realness. And so I like to take people back into it. This is what it's like in a criminal situation. This is what it's like in a natural disaster. You know, this is what it's like in an amazing play. Like, it doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be conflict related, but you just want that rawness that really transports your audience from their computer at work in the office right into that moment with you.